Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We are broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios, brought to you this second hour by Extreme Exteriors. We're talking about what's taking place in the state of Colorado. I think I said at the last break, Arizona.
No, it's Colorado. Let's clarify.
My bad. So, yes, we're talking about what's taking place in the state of Colorado. And again, it's all around what took place last year when they felt that it was necessary to develop this new office, right, Tony?
The Homeowner Association Information Office.
Yes.
Was created last January.
Yeah, and the purpose was just to gather information.
A place where homeowners who were suffering from Homeowners Association syndrome, a place they could call
to Dr. Solomon
to register their complaints.
Yes.
Yeah.
So apparently the feeling was here at the state legislature in Colorado that homeowners don't get to be heard. And if they don't get to be heard, then they need an outlet for being heard.
Okay. All right.
All I want is what I have coming to me. All I want is my fair share.
There you go.
That's
right.
That is what some were complaining about.
That's right. So they started compiling information about the number of calls they got from homeowners in associations and the number of complaints. And you did the math, Gene.
Yeah.
Out of 837,622 registered association homes, this office has received 477 complaints.
And that is such a small number. It is 6/10,000ths of 1%. It's not even 1%. It's not even a half a percent. It's not 1/100th of a percent.
No.
Not a 1,000th of a percent.
Right.
6/10,000ths of a percent. I think that's important.
I do too.
Because that puts it into perspective. So here they thought it necessary. Here the state of Colorado said to the legislature said to homeowners, we're going to threaten you with not allowing you to, here is what they said. They said, if you don't register as of last March, HOA in Colorado, you're going to be stripped of your ability to impose or enforce liens against your members. What?
For
really?
non-payment of assessments.
Yes.
Whatever.
You're going to do that just
if we don't register.
Because the people don't register.
So they've forced people to register and pay for this office.
And then everybody had to pay $8 per home.
That's
times
right.
over 800,000 homes. And we're talking millions of dollars this first year with less than a half of the people complying.
That's $6,696,000 roughly.
Yeah, so
for this office.
So over $6 million comes into a two-person office for this need because of, and with a threat that if you don't comply, we're going to take away your ability to function as an HOA.
And we think the whole thing is just a huge trumped-up non-issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how many did they have this wondrous first year? 477 complaints, which is 6/10,000ths of 1%. Let me say that one more time. It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? 6/10,000ths of 1%.
No, can you draw a parallel to that number to kind of give us an idea of how infinitesimal this number is?
The first thing that came to my mind is that our government has set up what's called the EPA. And one of the charges of the EPA is to make sure that we have clean water to use and enjoy to drink.
Yep.
And I'm all for that.
You support that idea.
I'm support clean water. It's amazing. I don't know anybody that doesn't support clean water.
You're just a bleeding heart liberal, aren't you?
You're drinking Prozac.
Yeah. Sometimes I suppose they would. There could be infinitesimal amounts of chemicals in all drinking water,
Sure.
and that happens, right?
So the EPA sets standards.
They set standards. Yeah. The standard isn't, I'm glad it isn't like it is with so much in government. They want, what do they call it, 100%
compliance
what's the word I'm looking for? That, anyway, it'll come to me.
All right.
But anyway, the idea that you've got to be 100% pure, you can't do it. So they said, you know what? We know that the drinking water is safe if it has these levels. You know, there are some traces of elements that the EPA has said if you have more than 6/10,000ths of 1% in your drinking water, it's considered
safe.
It's still considered safe and okay.
Well, some of those things are things like cyanide and arsenic.
Yeah, and
so they're allowing more poisons into our water.
So is it? Yeah. So let's put that. We're putting this in perspective, folks. Do you see what it is that we're getting at here? Here is someone who wanted to go to this great length of taxation, for further imposing additional money, and we all know that once a government agency is started, it's a lot harder to stop it than it is to start it.
That's right. Now, someone might make the argument that this is the first year this agency has existed.
Yeah.
People haven't caught on to its existence. So it's not a good measure of the actual number of complaints out there because people are just learning about this place. So perhaps after 5 or 10 years, you might actually have 0.8 10,000ths of a percent complaints, right?
So yes, and so but what would be interesting? Why doesn't this kind of thinking come to our legislators more often?
I don't know.
How about an idea of a sunset provision? I don't even think there's any idea. I can see where someone says we don't know if something is a problem.
Right.
We're not going to assume there is. I mean, if you read last year's,
we're going to test it.
If you read last year's story, it came out and they said because HOA associations that have been created are a burden to so many homeowners. I mean, it came out with that statement
with a very strong statement,
a very indicting statement. Yes,
saying this is a problem. We believe it's a problem, so this is what we're going to do. So let's talk about the categories of complaints they received.
Yeah,
these 477 complaints.
This is very interesting.
I think so too.
What's the first one? Go ahead.
Well, 17% of the complaints were about records and transparency issues. I interpret that to mean people calling in saying, I didn't know what I was buying.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the governing document said I can't park my semi-trailer cab in my driveway. I didn't know I couldn't park my snowmobiles here. That's often the complaints we hear, right?
Or an HOA that's self-managed, and they said to someone, I demand a copy of the financials now, and they've said, we'll get them to you, and then they call back a week or two later, where is my financials?
Sure.
I demand a copy now.
So they're complaining that this association board is secretive and keeping information from me. Okay, 17% of the complaints were about records and transparency.
Another 14% was over boards and management companies failing to follow the governing documents. Isn't that interesting?
I think that's very interesting, that 14% of the complaints were because governing documents were not being enforced.
So it's not that the HOAs being heavy-handed, they're not being heavy-handed enough.
Exactly.
Bingo.
Exactly.
Yes. How about another one here? 13% board or management companies not addressing or listening to homeowners' concerns.
We know from experience that many homeowner concerns are addressed, but the homeowner doesn't get their way.
And that does happen. Let's face it. That was our first story. There was a board president who was purposefully intimidating in his presence to try and to diminish any kind of pushback he would get from homeowners or get any feedback. So it does exist. I'm not going to stand here at the microphone and say that never exists. Some of that does.
Absolutely. There's legitimate concerns and complaints.
But sometimes what people say as not being heard, to me, really what they're saying is,
I was told no.
I was told no.
The answer was no.
The answer was no. And again, the answer is not no because you have just a couple of people in power who just love to play God over you. We're talking because there may be a whole set of homeowners who said, you know what, we don't like this.
That's right. Or they may be enforcing their governing documents.
Exactly. Yeah, in one association, I just had this last week. Some person let their dog off leash.
Ties in with our other
Yeah,
story.
boy, he would love to move into a homeowner association in Arizona, and after that story, I may ask him to do that. But other people called me and complained, other homeowners, because they said, I've got kids, and my kids are allergic to pets. I had someone who say, I'm a little bit afraid of dogs, and I just would prefer that none come close to me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other reasons, and so it's not just a few people. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And so when you take a look at all of these categories, all of these items, to me, it shows, I think, the true state of what's going on in homeowner associations. Yes. I would say things are working very well. Thank you very much.
That's right. I agree with you. Yes. There are very good reasons to purchase in a homeowners association, and usually those reasons are tied to the fact that there are restrictions and that those restrictions are enforced. I want to live in a community where dogs are not allowed to run loose. I want to live in a community where the aesthetics of the exterior are under control so that my neighbor doesn't get to paint his house orange or purple. I have a friend, she works at MHA, as a matter of fact. She bought her first home a few years ago, and she immediately started talking about a neighbor. Everyone in the neighborhood calls this place the clown house, because that's what it looks like. It looks like a clown exploded on this house, and they've all just had to put up with it. But she hates it. She says, I would love to live in a homeowners association where my neighbor does not get to decorate their home as a clown.
So it's interesting. So, folks, here we are. We talked about this story a year ago. Here we're following up a year later, and it's interesting what is actually taking place.
Yeah.
Do you know what'll be real interesting, Tony, is for us to continue to follow this as time goes on and find out, how do the legislators in Colorado interpret this information?
Yeah, I would like to know, because they are getting, what did we say, over $6 million in revenue from this. I'm afraid what's going to happen
they're
going to enjoy the revenue, and more associations are going to be forced to register, and yet the office will be absolutely pointless.
You're right. It happens so much of the time, especially with grants at universities. People need to show and prove their usefulness so that they can continue to get
their
the money.
grant. But the government doesn't necessarily have to do that.
No, that's right. Well, anyway, it's interesting. We'll continue to follow that story. Folks, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk and ask the question, is a homeowners association like a government, or is it not? What do you think? We'll give you our opinion, of course, after these messages.